Alright everyone, I still see some legacy media cope and simping for Bidenomics, although it's not necessarily the most intelligent line to go with. I don't think that embracing the term Bidenomics, much like the Let's Go Brandon thing and Dork Brandon, that Chinese meme about U.S. imperialism that then got transmogrified by a bunch of weirdo leftoids, basically the Tumblr crowd. Well, Joe Biden thinks it's a good idea to appropriate that and use it as a campaign messaging. I don't know. I think other than the most hardline of DNC shills, nobody under 30 finds that anything other than cringe. And most people over 30 as well, if they know that it's even there. Of course, some of them being tech illiterate, they're still just seeing CNN reports. Bidenomics is a disaster. Honestly, I'm not sure which campaign staffer decided, who at the White House decided to embrace the concept of Bidenomics. What, because you could lie to people and say that inflation was coming down? Here's the problem. The largely white liberal urban population living in Trust Fundville, gated community, inner city hipster apartment, stuff like that. You may be in a society that's markedly different from small town America, certainly rural America, and to a large degree the outer suburbs. Your life in an experience is simply different from the average American. You're not the median American. A median American is basically a hybrid between someone in a large-ish small town, smallish city, or someone living in the suburbs of a metro district. That's a large chunk of the U.S. population. Then you've also got rural and core urban Americans. Bidenomics is a little bit, it's sort of shades of Obamanomics, if you think about it. And I talked about it at the time. When Barack Obama was elected, he does the bailout thing and the shovel-ready thing. That didn't work so well. Oh, I guess shovel-ready wasn't really shovel-ready. Sorry about pissing away tens of billions of dollars. By the way, Biden's infrastructure program is basically the same thing, only 10 times more expensive. That won't cause any economic problems either, or any embarrassment for the possible liberal second administration. I think it'll come back to haunt him if he is reelected. If I were Biden, I'd be hoping that I goddamn lose to Trump so I can just sit back and spend my retirement looking at the flames at this point. When you look at that, what happened? The recovery in the 2010s was a thing. Throughout the early 2010s, when Obama's in office, joblessness came down, the housing market began to slowly correct, etc., 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 but it was disproportionate. And here was one thing that really hurt him. A lot of that recovery happened in urban areas that are already controlled by Democrats. Much of it did not happen in small town, rural, and industrial America. The Rust Belt got hammered. I can remember, I'm sitting there in Rutland. Rutland got slamma-jammed by the housing crisis. Homes foreclosed all over the place. There was not a block without at least one or two buildings on it that were foreclosed. Long into the period in which other more urban areas had decently recovered, Rutland still was a mess. By the way, this has caused the downward spiral, that and fentanyl at this point, that has crippled my home city. There's no reason to go to Vermont anymore, people. I've seen so many people say, oh, Sticks, would you recommend moving to Vermont? No, I would recommend looking at New Hampshire, the better version of Vermont with less gun control and lower tax threshold. It's one of the most easy states to live in. The property tax can be a bit onerous, but I think they graduate. It won't affect most people, much like with Vermont. Anyway, Bidenomics is a similar disaster. Any recovery currently taking place from the warped amount of inflation and lockdownerism of the last few years as it slowly ebbs away is disproportionately going to impact positively areas like cities, liberal cities, not small town America. They've been left behind, once again, as usual. I mean, it's hard to design an economic policy that won't let somebody fall through the gaps, and nobody dares to piss off the cities if they're a Democrat, so why wouldn't their fiscal policy disproportionately help them? But the inflation is still there. The Fed is still considering raising rates. Biden is pretending it's all peachy keen, and his people are literally campaigning on the concept. But the average person buys their own groceries. The average person pumps their own gas. Mike Pence has forgotten how to do this, apparently, by the way. They see the price at the pump. They see the price at the stores, etc., etc. They also draw a wage or a salary. It's probably not the kind of salary that someone like Biden would be associated with. They draw a middle class salary or a working class salary, or they freelance and they get $50K a year or something. They can understand. I trust them to understand that they're not as well off now, even if their wages have risen considerably, simply because of the inflation, as they were a few years ago, before the COVID bullshit, the lockdownerism. I believe that the average person understands that. By the way, gas prices now creeping up as well. No, Bidenomics is a joke. You massively inflate the currency. Now you're taking credit for it coming down, but it's actually linear. When you have, in the prior year, 8% some odd inflation for a month, this is how it's really calculated. People forget about this. And then the next year, it's only 4% or something like that. That is a compounding measure. It's 4% higher than the already higher amount from the prior year. At this point, you would need deflation, fairly sharp deflation, to put the genie back in the bottle. But we're not getting that. We might hit that in a year or so. That's possible. But hey, according to the lost causers that say that Trump can't win and they have a massive TDS, this is all Trump's fault, right? With his massive spending during the lockdowns, he's the one that caused inflation. Okay, well then what would happen to Joe with the massive spending of the infrastructure deal sometime thereafter? Well, it should be showing up sometime next year, so you can expect another bump in inflation, I suppose. Oh, how wonderful. We'll test their economic theory I happen to disagree with. Now, Bidenomics is a disaster. Most people know this. Hell, it's been a disaster for other countries, too. You think a U.S. economic policy, you don't think that it affects other nations? The U.S. isn't even top tier at this point for inflation. And hell, the Netherlands hasn't beat out, I think. It's like 5% here right now or something like that. Again, a year-over-year metric over double-digit inflation the year prior. Yeah, no, the prices haven't gone wacky at all. This hurts the entire world economy. And with the massive inflation, the hyperinflation almost of the world economy, I mean, the palace of cards at some point comes crashing down. Again, if I were Joe, I'd almost hope that Trump would get reelected so that when things collapse because of my own policies, he gets to take the blame for it and get remembered as a double disgrace or something like that, which would be funny. It's also likely to happen. Just telling you, I don't see things getting better. I just find it inexplicable that they would run on a slogan that's so toxically tainted. Oh, I'm going to try to make Bidenomics my own, man. I'm going to take it out behind the woodshed and do a push-up match. You'll lose, Joe. What are you even thinking? That's about all. Peace out.